All right, why don't we start with having you give me a little bit of background on yourself, Jeff?
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Jeffrey Lee. I've lived in Maine for about a decade, was raised on the West Coast, but have spent pretty much my whole adult life on the East Coast, went to college out here. Got into insurance about 13 years ago and opened my own agency just this past spring.
That's exciting. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So tell me about the agency. It's with Farmers Insurance.
Farmers Insurance, which ironically was the carrier I started with many, many years ago out west before I moved to Maine.
Yeah.
At the time when I changed coasts, Farmers didn't have a presence out here, but they've always been really big west of the Mississippi. They've been around since the 1920s. They actually literally started off insuring farmers
makes sense.
Back in the day, a century ago. And they wanted to expand into the East over the last few years. They have been doing that. They're now tackling New England. They came to me and actually recruited me to come back to the Farmers family and be their sort of flagship franchise in the New England region.
So your office is in South Portland?
It is.
Is that sign up yet?
We have an install date, finally. The permit is approved. It's coming in at the end of November.
But you guys are open for business. We've obviously been doing business since you guys have been open, so that hasn't held you back. It's just kind of delaying the welcome party, right?
Yeah, exactly. Which is scheduled now for the second week of December.
You're going to have to email me that afterwards. So.
Oh, absolutely.
Put it in my calendar. December's a busy month, all the holiday stuff, but definitely look forward to making it over there. As far as insurance, though, what kind of insurance do you specialize in at Farmers?
We really handle all of it. We do home, auto, business, life, toys like boats, motorcycles, ATVs. My bread and butter is really more on the personal side. We do some commercial insurance, but we really specialize in the personal side, home and auto. Specifically, over my career, I've done a lot of work with new home buyers and new home purchases. So on the residential side, we do a lot of our work with, home purchases.
Yeah. And that's why we've been working together. It's
exactly
easy for me to make a referral to you when I'm working with someone that's buying a home. They obviously need to get homeowners insurance, build that into the loan. It's an easy referral for me to say, hey, call Jeff and his team at Farmers, and you take pretty good care of him. You guys do life insurance a little bit, right? Is that something? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Usually for us, because we work with so many home buyers, it's, we often talk about mortgage protection for when somebody buys a home. As you know, Randy, like they're often required to carry, PMI, which keeps, the lender's end just in case somebody should pass away. What we do is essentially the same kind of thing, but for somebody's family. We like to cover the term and amount of their mortgage in case one of the two should pass away, if it's a couple or, if it's a single person, so they can leave money to whoever it may be to pay off the mortgage.
Yeah, it's important. And those aren't fun conversations to have. I mean, insurance in general isn't a fun topic to discuss with people.
I mean, insurance in general, folks don't often like to talk about because it's such an intangible product. It's not a fun thing to purchase, right? It's not like getting a house or a car or, a new boat or something. It's not fun at all. In fact, it's like, you're basically hedging your bets. You're paying money into a pool that's going to take care of you if you should have, a very bad day or possibly the worst day. And no one really likes to think about that. We're not hardwired to think about, risk actually happening. Like if we were, I don't think any of us could function. Like we all kind of wake up in the morning, we assume the sun's going to rise, everything's going to be okay, we're going to make it to the end of the day. So, and I think the big misconception, certainly around life insurance, is that it's really expensive. For somebody in their 20s, 30s, 40s who's in halfway decent health, we can actually usually do it cheaper than what they've got at work. That's a huge misconception because we often talk to people and they're like, oh, well, I've got a policy through work. Oftentimes, a policy through your employer is only going to cover your burial expenses. Yeah. It's not even going to put a dent in the mortgage if you're a dual income household. And oftentimes, we're doing it through a private carrier rather than a group policy at work is actually cheaper for more coverage. I'd say the other big misconception around insurance, and that's on the, like the property side as well, is pricing. People often think these days, I think because of advertising, that the cheapest policy is the best policy, which really couldn't be further from the truth. I've seen situations, horror stories where somebody changed carriers, went with a policy that was $20 less a month, but they didn't take the time and the agent didn't take the time to sell them or for them to buy the right coverages. And then, when a claim happens, if you're going out of pocket, five figures, 10, 20 grand, saving $20 a month means, that's a drop in the bucket compared to what you have to lose.
Mhm. Well, that's one of the things too, when people are going through a loan application process with me and they tell me they're working with a Geico or Progressive or someone online, I really encourage them to talk to someone like yourself who can actually consult with them, talk about specifically what their needs are, as opposed to just someone from a 1-800 number that might not know their complete situation or be wanting to guide them on exactly what they need. I think that that's where you can really differentiate yourself.
Absolutely. And the the other misconception too is that the time that it takes, calling into a 1-800 number versus talking to a local agent is about the same, because with a 1-800 number, you're going to get, transferred from one department to the other. You've got to wait on hold. By the time you buy a policy from them, you could have spent the same amount of time with a local agent who could actually explain what you're buying and tailor it to meet your exact needs, so that you're not overpaying for coverage you don't need, or you're not paying for a policy that's not actually going to do what you need it to do if you should come to a worst case kind of scenario.
One thing people express to me as a concern is the fact that they already have their auto insurance with someone. So the idea of doing something different than who they have their auto insurance with, and that's why people end up with Progressive a lot, I find, because they have their car insurance through Progressive. So they're just like, well, I obviously have to get my homeowner's insurance through Progressive because I don't want to rock that boat. But how easy is it to change auto insurance? Like the easiest thing ever, right?
It is literally the easiest thing ever. My agency actually does it for people.
Yeah.
If you were to come to me, you're buying a new house, we're going to bundle auto with it. We take care of everything. We would send you a form for you to just e-sign in your email. We take care of canceling the other policy, getting you whatever refund you're due, and then we take care of everything, with the proof of insurance for, whoever needs it, whether you have a loan on your car or if you're buying a house and the mortgagee needs a binder that shows proof of insurance. We take care of all of that. The process with us is actually probably faster than a 1-800 number, because we take care of the cancellations and because you're not going to wait on hold.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting barrier. And I think that just kind of hits the nail on the head as far as how easy it is. And it's something that I try to relay to people. Why don't we get into some horror stories? Have you experienced any claims for your customers? Like some pretty...
Over the course of my career, I've absolutely got some horror stories. Oh, man. The worst one is probably, I had a client who owned multiple rental buildings, was doing very well for himself. He was familiar with umbrella coverage because I had talked to him a number of times about it. And for the listeners who don't know what that is, an umbrella policy extends liability over your home, your auto, your rental properties, whatever you may have, boat, motorcycle, whatever it is. It extends liability coverage over all of your risks in increments of $1 million. Excuse me. Most of us only need about $1 million. So the policy is actually very inexpensive. $1 million policy with Farmers costs about $150 a year. So
crazy.
Very inexpensive. And what that does is, if you get into a very bad scenario where you're in a bad accident, you're liable for it, and your primary insurance, auto in this case, is exhausted, which it does get exhausted pretty quickly in a bad scenario where somebody's injured and is missing work and was a high earner. Then your umbrella kicks in, and it makes sure that you don't get your income garnished and you don't lose your property or have actual, liquid assets taken away from you from savings, investments, accounts, whatever it may be. So I had tried to sell this fella an umbrella. Anybody who has rental property should have an umbrella.
Definitely.
Whether it's, one, condo that you rent out, or if you own multiple apartment buildings, you need an umbrella. The limit of it depends on the client. And again, that's why you should consult with a local agent who's going to analyze your needs. But I digress. So I had tried for probably 2 or 3 years to get this client an umbrella. It was always the case, and I get this all the time, of, oh yeah, I see the need for it. Yeah, let me think about it. I don't, maybe next month, or I've got some money coming in from this other rental, whatever the case. So he had a fire. People died.
Oh, man.
He no longer owns any of those properties, and I think actually did some jail time. This is in another state. This was a long time ago, not in Maine. But that's probably my worst horror story, and one where I felt it too, because I had tried to get this guy the coverage he needed, and I feel better about it than if I hadn't done that.
Yeah.
But still, I kicked myself because, maybe it needed, one more phone call or me pushing harder, whatever the case may be.
But you've talked a lot to me about the idea of doing an insurance review on an annual basis. Is that something you still recommend to people?
100%. Absolutely. At least every couple years, if not every year, because take what's going on right now with inflation to building materials. A 2x4 has gone up astronomically in cost. So the cost to rebuild somebody's home has also gone up substantially. If you're not reviewing your coverage every year, especially if you own a home right now in this current market, you might be underinsured. And if you don't have a good agent who's watching that, because there are endorsements that agents can add to policies that accommodate for inflation. But those are the kind of things that you need to be, that your agent should be checking in with you about annually or every other year at the worst.
Yeah, I mean, values have increased so much at this point. So I imagine replacement costs have to be reevaluated.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, there's a good chunk of insurance consumers in Maine who are not insured properly currently.
Yeah, that's wild. How about other types of insurance that you do? Like just weird type stuff. Do you do like wedding insurance, pet insurance? Like, are there like some unique products that you guys have?
Absolutely. We've got all the crazy fun one-off sort of things. We do event insurance. We do professional liability. So like errors and omissions for, real estate agents, or I'm sure lenders probably, you guys have E&O too.
Yeah, I think we have something through corporate, but yes, that is something.
Me too. Like we have the same thing. It's basically like professional malpractice sort of thing. We do that. Pet health insurance, absolutely. I've got my pets insured.
So I was going to say, what are your thoughts on that? Because everyone tells me it's a no-brainer, but it seems like it's crazy.
Actually,
like, are there a bunch of things that it doesn't cover? Because it seems like everyone that has it doesn't pay that much for it and like always uses it all, right? Like who doesn't buy pet insurance and doesn't use it?
I have another horror story about that actually, and it involves myself.
Yeah.
I had always carried pet health insurance on all of my animals, my entire insurance career. I had never had to file a claim. So I got a new kitten last, and I kind of did the numbers myself and said, I've spent X amount of dollars on pet insurance over the last 13 years on my other animals. I've never used it. I tallied it up. I was like, well, I could just self-insure and not, insure this new kitten, who then not 2 months later knocked a potted plant over onto himself, shattered his leg in 3 places, and cost me about $7,000.
Oh my God.
It happens even to insurance agents. It happens where I was like, the chances of, a kitten needing, a catastrophic sort of thing are very low. And none of my other animals have ever needed this. So I'm just going to hold on.
Thing? Like it's going to be catastrophic.
It doesn't cover wellness visits. You can include it, but it ends up being a wash. You'd end up paying as much as you would for the visits directly. So it needlessly complicates things. It's really for catastrophic things like your kitten breaking its leg in 3 places.
Yeah. My dog tore her ACL at one point too.
Yeah,
that was like $3,500. And that's when I did not realize that labs were predisposed to tearing their ACL. So I don't know if you would have ever heard of that, but like
actually, my fiance's family dog, who's still living and is ancient now, has 2 bad ACLs in his life.
Yeah, and once one ACL goes, it's very likely for the other one to go. So it's like that's some serious money for people. So, anyways, the next dog we get, we'll definitely get some pet insurance. How much does it cost in general? Is it like a few $100 a year?
Expensive. If you get it when they're young, you're looking at something between $10-$20 a month, maybe.
Yeah, nothing. Do you guys do hole-in-one insurance?
No, we do not.
Who does that sort of thing, right? Because I always hear of that being like a thing if you're doing a golf scramble or whatever.
That's usually, there are like specialty companies that do, very one-off sort of things like that. Like I think like Aaron Rodgers had his arm insured at one point.
You guys don't insure someone's like smile or something.
No. That's more like a high-end boutique sort of thing. Not something that we do much of here in Maine.
So what's your plan for the future with insurance? Right now it's you and how many people in the office, and then where does it go from here?
3 agents. We're just going to continue to grow. The plan is to keep building the book of business. Since we're new and we don't have a large book yet, my 3 agents are geared towards sales. Eventually, pretty soon actually, at the rate we're growing, we're going to have to bring a 4th person on just to service the book, because we do really pride ourselves on service. I mean, that's the benefit of having a local agent. So at a certain point, to keep my producers free, I'm going to have to bring in like a licensed full-time service person just to handle everything that the book needs in like a timely manner.
Definitely.
And from there, it just grows in the same sort of increments. Like then we'll add, another salesperson, another service person, probably in that same ratio of 3 to 1.
Yep. And you have the space to expand in your current office?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we planned to grow big, so we've got a lot of room to grow in here.
That's exciting, man. Now, what's the main ways you're growing your business? I know we're obviously do some networking together, but like, what's your goal, like plan for how you grow your business?
Networking is huge. I mean, that's what I love about Southern Maine. Like, it's a large enough community that there's a lot of business to go around. It's a small enough community that your reputation means something, and the connections you make really can sink or swim a business. So, we do a lot of networking with like mortgage lenders like yourself, a lot of realtors. We'll continue to do that and grow. We're picking up a lot of business also because farmers, being newer to Maine, anticipated the need for rate increases and set their rates where they needed them to be when they first onboarded our products here. The backstory is that, again, because of inflation, insurance companies paid out astronomical, like record-setting amounts in claims last year. Because of that, all of them are taking big rate increases this year. Farmers anticipated that, so when they came into Maine, they set their rates where they need to be. Other carriers in Maine, and I'm sure the listeners are going to see this shortly, are filing for, many of them, 20% or greater rate increases in the fourth quarter of this year, first quarter of next year.
Yep.
So if you have insurance in Maine, expect that to go up. It's going to go up significantly with a lot of companies. And we're getting a lot of people calling in, shopping, just looking for better.
Reevaluating their insurance.
Yeah, absolutely.
Rate increases. Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm not surprised that premiums are going to increase. It seems like these insurance companies get crushed all the time. I mean, I don't know the numbers in Maine, but like you think of nationwide, all these natural disasters all the time, and I don't know how much that stuff affects people in Maine, but like, yeah, I'm not surprised that rates are going up. Does any of that stuff even matter? What's going on in like?
Yeah, it affects, if it's a national company, what's happening elsewhere in the country affects rates here. If you have a national company like a State Farm, Allstate, Farmers, also Liberty Mutual, a lot of them, because it's one big shared risk pool, right? So everybody pays into the vault of this one national company. And then if they have huge losses, if there are floods in Texas or fires in California, then they pay out of their big vault, but it's one group vault for the whole country. So everybody's rates go up. The flip side of that is having a mutual, which is like a more regional thing. That's dangerous too, though, because, there are New England companies that specifically only do New England. We have a bad winter, like those customers' rates are going up significantly because all of their risk is in one little area.
Yeah. It seems wild to see all these, fires out west, hurricanes down south, tornadoes down south, and just these seems like billions and $billion events that are happening. And inevitably, all these premiums are going to go up. So
absolutely, yep. And then you've got not only that. I mean, on the other side of it too, like I was saying earlier, like things are more expensive to rebuild now too, by a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was a time when someone was buying a house that I would set the expectation that homeowners insurance is probably going to be around $600 a year. And sometimes that happens if people have good credit and the houses aren't too expensive. But like in general, I've been telling people it's, $900 a year, $1,000 a year, something like that. And that's probably what
you're dead on with that estimate. Typical rate's going to be around $800 to $900, $1,000.
Yeah. Now, how much does credit score affect that stuff? I never really fully understand that. If my borrowers with lower credit scores are going to pay higher premiums just because of that, or is it really that?
Insurance companies use credit score as part of a larger sort of score. It's not just the credit. They create, like different companies call it different things, but it's basically like an insurance score that includes your credit, various consumer reports, your claims history.
Yeah.
So they have their own internal sort of ranking for that. Credit does affect it.
Yeah. And then obviously the property itself is,
of course. Oh yeah.
Is like probably the biggest factor, I assume.
Absolutely, because if you take a house that costs $1 million to rebuild and a house that costs $200,000 to rebuild, the risk is much higher than one.
Yeah. What's the best way to find information on you and your office and to contact you?
Our phone number is 207-810-2190. That's the best way to get a hold of us. We're online also. If you just search Jeffrey Lee Farmers Insurance Maine, that'll pop my website right up. But we're always available by phone, so that's the best way.
So it's not a scenario where it's like go to my website, apply online. It's always going to be like give me a call and I'll do it on the phone.
You can apply online through my website, but we'd much rather talk to you.
Yeah, totally. Awesome, bud. I appreciate you coming on. Thank you for always taking good care of the people I send your way. You're the man, and we'll be in touch.
Thanks, Randy.
All right. Thanks, bud.
Have a good one.